Also, we have a duty to encourage and facilitate local and foreign business investment, and also to stimulate innovation and innovations, and to create innovations. At this point, I would also like to make it clear that BRELA does not issue business licenses or trade license, because there are some confusion to many people that we issue trading licenses. We don't issue trading licenses. Trading licenses are issued by either the Ministry of Industry and Trade or the local government, the municipal councils, after you have registered your company or the business name. Next. Those are our vision and mission statement. As you can see them, they seem to be aiming very high or very abstract, but I assure you, we have commitments, and we will reach there one day, one time. Next slide. Now, registration of companies in Tanzania mainland. Why I say Tanzania mainland? Because registration of companies is not a union matter. So Tanzania Bara, you've got our institution, we've got our system we've got our laws of registration of companies, as well as Zanzibar, they've got their institution, they've got their laws, they've got their system of registration of companies. So it's not a union matter. That's why I'm talking of the registration of companies in Tanzania mainland. It's very simple. You need to have 2 or more persons. The 2 or more persons, what they do, they just clear their proposed company name. How? Either by clearing themselves on our website, because we have uploaded all the registered company names and business names onto our website, or by submitting a name clearance letter to BRELA, and then we clear it, and then we give you the reply whether your name has been cleared or has been rejected. After that, the applicants are supposed to prepare what we call the Memorandum and Articles of Association, in short, MEMAS. In other countries, they call it statutes. In other countries, they call it charter. In other countries, they call it constitution. It's one and the same thing. The instrument that established the company. After that, the applicants are supposed to fill form number 14A. This is a form for giving the particulars of directors, their names, their date of birth, their nationalities, and their residential address where they live. And form 14B. Form 14B is a sort of a declaration or an affidavit that the members, one of the members has to swear on behalf of its fellows to declare that all the information that they're bringing to BRELA is true and correct to the best of their knowledge. And then after preparation and filling of all those documents, you just submit the documents, and you just submit the forms and the members to the register of companies. You pay some fees. Of course, in the law, we've got what is known as a schedule of fees. There are ranges that the fees depend on the share capital that you mentioned in the memorandum, that the company intends to start with a certain amount of share capital. We don't need to prove, we don't need you to prove the share capital. It's just a declaration, and that's why you swear affidavit for 14B. Then after submitting the document, you pay the necessary fees. Then after it undergoes the scrutinization by the persons who have been, who are supposed to go to scrutinize the documents, and if the information or the documents are complete and correct, then your company is registered and issued with a certificate of incorporation. The process takes about 5 working days. Then that was the registration of companies. We manage the process so that if a person finishes with BRELA, for example, and he goes to TRA, instead of being asked again to provide the same information, this information is just linked among the government institutions, and then you will have the information without necessarily asking again that person to provide that information. Next, few developments that we have started to improve. One of them is that we have developed an in-house database system process whereby the registration of the business names that I have said, in the US you call DBAs, doing business as. those entities' long-term measures is that there is also, and again, a process which is going on, and this is also a directive by the president that we will be registering these companies and business them online by, say, mid next year. So with that few remarks, I think you can see yourself that to register a company in Tanzania is just like kumsukuma mlevi, we say. So don't worry, please come and register your company. Asante sana.
A wonderful day so far, and I think we've taken in a lot and learned a lot. And I'm actually personally very thankful, because I was just talking to this gentleman over here. He told me I can now buy a house in Tanzania. I didn't know that. Very easily, in other words. So this is really good. So I do not have, I'm not working for the government, and I don't have much to share in terms of what you can do home. But I'd like to engage you for just a few minutes on something really passionate to me, and that's entrepreneurship, and how we can use that to empower our young people, empower our country, both Tanzanians in diaspora and Tanzanians in Tanzania. So a couple things I'd like to touch on, just a brief overview of key issues. What really I'm trying to sort of hone in. What should empowerment really accomplish when we say we're fully empowered and fully emerged as a country? What is it that we really we can use to measure? And then how do we get there? And now this is my own view of how we can get there, but I'm sure we are more intelligent collectively than myself, so we can come up with better solutions. And then an example of entrepreneurial empowerment ventures that are now taking home as an example of what we can probably continue to support and to move in that direction. And then what it means to you when you get out of here. I hope we can at least take some action items together, and sometime next year we can report that we're doing something at least. Next. So I like this slide for a reason. I've shared it before, because at a macro level, our country looks really nice. I mean, we're among the countries in the red, meaning we're growing very well, 6-7%, you know, upper digits going forward. And this particular slide lends itself very well to investments, right? So if I'm IBM and I'm looking for a place to go to, Tanzania is an opportunity place I can start looking into. But what bothers me a little bit is the next slide that probably is going to come out. At a micro level, there's a little bit of a disconnect, right? So we have 70% of our people who are employed in probably agriculture are producing about 30% of the country's GDP, and 20% produce about 70% of what we earn in the country. So that economic structure breakdown there is something that you might not be able to see at the high level, but when you dive deeper a little bit, not all our 80% are farmers. They're people who probably are not being engaged in any economic activity in the country. So there's something wrong about this story, and that's what I want us to sort of take a look. So the next thing I'd like to define before we get too deep in this is what should really empowerment do for us? When we are empowered, what characteristics are we going to be really looking for? One is upwards mobility, that we are able to actually engage the 80% in our country who are right now are at the bottom or not being engaged in any formal way. Secondly is maintaining the momentum for the next generation. And I use this very intently because when China was making its reforms in the 70s, they were sort of eyeing what we're seeing today, start to tap into the resources they're no longer getting from the places they're getting today. So I think the most important thing is to sort of intently look at where we are and ask a simple question: what country are we trying to be in the next 20 to 30 years? And then how do we now start putting together the building blocks and foundation to get there? And again, referring to this gentleman as he spoke yesterday, I was speaking to somebody before I got here really about Ethiopia and what they're doing to position themselves in that particular area. In other words, every country in Africa is seeing these new trends that are taking place, and the question is, are we going to be a part of that movement And are we going to be the people who are positioning themselves when the web comes along, we can start to move along with them? So here's a couple of, some sort of a framework in which I thought would be meaningful in trying to think through how we can actually get from where we are to where we would like to be. One is, and this is just fictitious, I say, imagine Tanzania as the next East African tech hub. What would we have to do to build that kind of a country? And the ecosystem to support this journey will start from an innovative education, entrepreneurial education, partnership with technology transfer. And this is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. For all the partnerships we have, for all the work that we do with foreign companies, we should have a standard requirement for tech transfer. That 5 years from when they're done with the project, there are Tanzanian entrepreneurial industries and companies that can carry on that work. So we don't have to repeat the cycle again, because next year we're going to be doing a new project, and we're going to be asking somebody from outside to come in and do the same work. So how do we put together an ecosystem as to support us in order to build the momentum to go be easy for everybody to move on and do and engage in an opportunity. But if there is something, whether it's short term, whether it's virtual work, and we can do this for maybe software development, there are already a lot of professionals that we have here that we can engage and say, hey, there is something back home that you can help us with. There's an opportunity here that you might be interested in. So the question is, how do we start to engage us here as the people in the diaspora, not only in America, but elsewhere, as a new human resource pool that Tanzania as a country can sort of rely on. And then finally, just a few examples that I think are already shaping the path going forward. So for instance, keep going forward. I think most of you have heard about Gas 550. This is an entrepreneurial venture that's, I think, in Tanzania. And the idea is to use your own garbage as a way to create biogas that you can use for cooking. And how can we support such ventures to continue, and how can we engage more people to start thinking in this direction of entrepreneurial ventures, more opportunities, not only just necessity entrepreneurship where I have no options and I'm selling something in order to get an income, but looking at the market and saying there is an opportunity here, there is a need and it needs to be filled. And another good example that I was really impressed with was Wazazi Tupendeni, which is the next slide. And I think the simple question here was, how do we improve care for mothers, for prenatal and neonatal care? We don't have the money to employ more OBGYNs and pediatricians, but we were able to say, well, we can use a platform like cell phones to provide the messages that women and their partners need in order to have better pregnancies and better babies at the end of the day. So what does this mean to you? And I have only 1 second. I think this entire presentation, my hope was to kind of culminate to these 3 simple points. One, we have an opportunity now to look at our challenges, be it poverty or anything else, in a completely different manner. That the 20 or the 80% of our country at the bottom don't have to wait 50 years before we can engage them into something more meaningful, because they can actually change our country to something different. And China has showed that. In order to get to where they were, they had to engage over 300 million people to the mainstream and kick their economy into overdrive. Secondly, it has completely changed the paradigm, right? We're now focusing on the problems, not the means. And I showed this by just looking at Wazazi Tupendeni. The means were we get doctors, but now there's a different way to be able to provide the same service to these mothers. So we're looking at the problem completely differently and providing the appropriate value. Finally, entrepreneurship is not limited to only the United States or Palo Alto. Any country can be an entrepreneur. Last week, India showed us that when they were able to get to Mars for about 10% of what we spent in the United States. So we can do it as a country. The question is, where do we want to be, and are we ready to ride that wave to go forward? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abel. This was a wonderful presentation. I may just want to add, because this area of entrepreneurship and investment is a big passion for me. We are here in this area. It is called a research triangle. A lot.
Authority is an autonomous government agency. We are working under Ministry of Industry and Trade. Our authority was established in 2006 and full operational in 2008. In Tanzania, there are 3 authorities dealing with investment promotion. We have Tanzania Investment Center that oversees investment in our country. We also have our Export Processing Zone Authority, which we promote investment in the special zones. And for the case of Zanzibar, there is Zanzibar Investment Promotion Agency. Next.